Welcome back, everyone, to the House of Hustle podcast here on Sports Radio 810. We are presented, as always, by our friends at Charlie Hustle and Capital Investment Management. My name is Jarrett Sutton. I'm joined, as always, by Stephen St. John. And, Stephen, we got a great interview lined up today. Very excited about it.
This is exciting.
Yep.
Is it okay? This is the best guest we've had?
All
apologies to everyone else.
This is the one no offense to our previous guests.
We've had great ones. I'm most excited about this one. Sorry.
Former teammates, a lot of guys around the basketball circle. Sophie Cunningham as well.
Right.
She's a great guest, but we're gonna get right to it. Without further ado, I do want to say our next guest needs no introduction. It's going to take a little bit, but I do want to list off some accolades of this man. Over 20 seasons as a head coach, he's won 400 games. He's had 11 20-win seasons, 9 NCAA tournament appearances, 2 Sweet 16s, an Elite 8 run. We'll get into that. And he's just one of 3 current Division I head coaches with 15-plus years of experiences and no losing seasons. He's with Mark Few and Tom Izzo in that group. So let's welcome the man I'm lucky to call Coach, Mike Anderson. Welcome to the show, Coach A.
Hey, what's going on, Jarrett? Hey, Stephen.
How you doing, Coach? Great to talk to you and great to hear from you. For those that are tuning in, tell people where you're at right now, where you're living, and how things are in your life.
Well, things are going well. I'm actually down in the Dallas metro area. My kids and grandkids are down in this area right here, so it's a spot that we're enjoying it. The weather's nice, the food's really good, and it's proximity to places where we can get to. You know, I'm from Birmingham, Alabama, so if I want to get there, I can get on a plane and get there. So, but more importantly, spending time with family.
That's great. So, Coach, I wanted to start just you were a player back in your day. I had a chance to play against you as at the rec center for many times.
We're going to get to that.
We'll get to that, but I want to start though at the beginning. You mentioned your hometown from Birmingham, and then Nolan Richardson, obviously a big reason that got you to Tulsa, and I just kind of wanted to pick your brain on just your playing career, just that experience as a player before you even became a coach.
Well, if I go back even to my, I guess when I'm about 10 or to 12 years old, used to play all different sports, basketball, football, baseball, you name it. We played it. And of course, coming from the South, you grow up basically football. That's what in everybody's mind. But I had an affection for basketball, so I was able to play it as a youngster, then of course in high school, then of course right around that time I was finishing high school, UAB had started their program with Gene Bartow, and it was a place I said, you know what, that's where I want to go. I graduated in '78, and unfortunately they didn't say, hey, you were good enough to play there. So I said, you know what, let me go to the junior college route. So I stayed there and went to a local junior college, Jeff State Junior College, and did real well. We got to the championship game of the NJCA, and lo and behold, the team we played against was Coach Nolan Richardson's Western Texas team that went 37-0, and we were victim number 37. So needless to say, they beat us, and then of course after that, I joined with him at Tulsa, and our first year there, he took 4 players off of that junior college team, and myself from Jeff State Junior College, and we won the NIT championship. And that's back when there was only 48 teams in the NCAA. And believe me, the NIT was really big. And so when you talk about, coming from Birmingham, and I don't know how it happened. Maybe God just put us together, but I had an opportunity to play for, and then of course work with the Hall of Fame coach in Nolan Richardson.
And did you know kind of all along as a player, I know, just talking with former coaches that did play, like they had the itch when they played that they knew, they might want to get into coaching and that might be their future. Did you think that too when you were a player, that's what you wanted to get into when you were done?
Well, we all have these pipe dreams, and that we're gonna play in the NBA, and of course I gave it a shot.
Yep.
Free agent route with the Atlanta Hawks, and I thought I was gonna get into business. I didn't know what kind of business. I was gonna be a businessman, and but one of the things I did, I got a job. I was a substitute teacher after I finished school in Tulsa. I stayed there. I did substitute teaching. I sold office supplies, and of course, winning a championship there in Tulsa, I had a pretty good clientele. I was making some pretty good money, but I always dabbled and kept my feet in the basketball realm. I did some volunteer coaching. No sooner than I finished up, I was volunteering with Tulsa with Coach Richardson. And when he left and took the job at Arkansas, that's when I said, you know what, I'm gonna jump into this right now. And I think he had something to do with that, but I just felt like I had something to give to the game, and I always have been a coach on the floor. It seemed like as a player, and so that was the most logical step.
How fun was that to take the transition from playing for Coach Richardson, and then obviously you go to Arkansas and you're an assistant under Coach Richardson for all those years? I know you looked up to him. He was kind of your role model and your inspiration. What was that like then? Those first years, and then ultimately what turned into such a long tenure as an assistant at Arkansas.
Well, the first year there, it was when his daughter was passing, and I mean, we went through a crazy period. And not only that, I got married that same year. So can you imagine? I got married that year. I quit a job that was making like $50,000. I took a job as a volunteer assistant coach at Arkansas for $6,000 a year. So I got married on the 15th of June. And the June 15th, I got married. June 16th, I was in basketball camp at the University of Arkansas. And so I had to work my way through it. And through the years, the blessing was I got a chance to learn everything about, basketball in the coaching capacity. It's all about the relationships and the communication. And so I not only got a chance to play for him, I got a chance to work with him. So who knows, all the intricacies of what he did to build his program than a guy that played for it. So I lived it.
And so when we think about some of those great Arkansas teams under Nolan Richardson and some of the great players that played there, I remember one year in Kansas City, you would have matched up against Kansas, but they got upset by Virginia, and they had that kid Junior Burrow that was so good, and Arkansas beat him in the Elite Eight in the NCAA tournament. We think about the identity that those teams had that you took to your teams, the 40 minutes of hell, the intimidation factor. Take me back to what that was like from a coaching standpoint to see Nolan Richardson at work and what made him such a great coach with that style that really overwhelmed the opponent.
Well, one of the things people don't really, get it. I think the first year at Arkansas, the way the 40 minutes of hell started, it was all the preliminary before you even get to picking up a basketball in practice. So you're talking about, and Jarrett can identify with this here. You're talking about the laps, the 5 and 5, the 4 and 4, jump rope for a minute. We used to sit walls. We used to run with vests on. I mean, there was so much done before we even touched the basketball, the water ball, the medicine ball. And like I said, Jarrett, he probably does sweat right now.
I know. Yeah. I'm thinking of running that hill, Coach.
He looks real uncomfortable all of a sudden.
So one of the kids, his name was Scott Rose. He's a lawyer now, and he made the statement and said, "Coach, when we get to practice," he said, "Hey, that's just 40 minutes of warm up." He said, "Man, that's 40 minutes of hell." And boom, there it was.
Wow.
So, but it's the relentless, the getting after you, attacking both ends of the floor, defensively, offensively, utilizing conditioning as a factor, and depth. One of the things we talked about was depth, but it's called pressure basketball. We're going to attack you offensively, and we're going to attack you defensively, and we're going to make you make quick decisions. So it was very fascinating. I mean, for me, I learned so much, having a chance to sit there with a Hall of Fame coach. And the thing about it, I love about it, and people didn't get it, is that Coach wasn't married to just one style. Everybody, but when you hear 40 minutes, what's in your mind? You're thinking, hey, pressure, here it comes. But pressure can be applied in a lot of different ways, and I even, that's some of the things I used to talk to Jarrett and that team, the Elite Eight team, the team we had in Missouri. There are different ways of playing, put pressure, but we want to continue to be the more aggressive.
So, Coach, I know you get to that final year with Coach Richardson, where he's let go, and then I believe you were the interim for a game. Is that right?
Yes.
You coached one as the interim head coach, and then UAB was kind of followed. Was that something that came about after that season, or had you kind of thought about making that transition to a different job and actually being the head man to take on a program that's your own?
Well, actually, I think I was in them for 2 games. I think Vanderbilt game, and then we played in the tournament. We lost in the tournament.
That's right.
It was the LSU, whoever it was, and then of course, obviously my goal was to be the next head coach at Arkansas, but it didn't happen. So that window closed, and lo and behold, another one opened up. Through relationships, a friendship, and now all of a sudden now I'm in line to get the job at UAB. Well, of all places, that's where I'm from. So it's again like one door closed and another one opened up, and what an unbelievable turn of events. I had no job. It was I think it was just through faith, through God, through a lot of prayer, and now I get a chance to go back home. When I left there when I was 20, and I'm going back there as the head coach at the age 42. So going back to when I said, I wanted to be a Blazer in 1978. Well, it just took a little longer to get there. So, and I can remember like it was yesterday. I had a granddaughter that was born on that day, April the 4th. And then not only that, in that press conference that we had at UAB, my mom was probably one of the most proud moms in the country, man. Her son is coming home and being a head coach, and it gave an opportunity for her to come and watch me do what I do.
So the team that jumps out to me, and I'm sure one that you hold near and dear to you, is the 2004 Sweet 16 run at UAB, the win against Kentucky, the #1 overall seed. Like I'm just curious to get your perspective on that team, on that season, because it's a special team that UAB had, and obviously what we love about the tournament is those teams we can kind of get behind. That kind of come, from maybe out of nowhere and have an opportunity to make a run in the dance. And it was such a big win, and I just that game alone was such a big moment in your career. And I'm just curious what you would say even just about that team in that season.
Well, I tell you what, it was, to me, I thought it was a continuance of what took place the year before. My first year, we were probably maybe 3 plays away from being in the NCAA tournament. We lost to Louisville, I think in the championship game at Louisville, to go to the tournament, to win the tournament. And then we went to the NIT and got to the Elite Eight. And then the next year, you fast forward to the next year, we added on a couple of twins, the Ronell and Donnell, Taylor twins, to go along with the guys that experienced, the Elite Eight in the Elite Eight run and the NIT. But we just had some scrappy, tough, hard-nosed guys. I mean, they led the nation in turnover margin and steals for 3 straight years.
Yeah.
And it was, I always talk about, pressure defense, and I think it's something we were pretty good at. We probably pressed more than any team that we had at Arkansas, like with Coach Richardson. We'd never pressed that much, but I had the arsenal to do it, and that's how we created offense for our team. And you got to remember, Conference USA was really good at that time. You still had Cincinnati, Louisville, Charlotte was good, Memphis, obviously, each and every year. South Florida was in it. This was the conference I thought prepared us for it. And so once we got to the tournament, our first game was the draw. I think it was a 9-8 game. And we drew Washington with little Nate Robinson. And, man, they were good. And we had to score 102 points to beat them. The score was 102 to 100. And now you got to come back and you got to face the Kentucky team, #1 seed, coached by a Hall of Fame coach in Tubby Smith. Great team. And somehow we hung around and we made the right plays at the right time. But our kids, they thought they could beat anybody in the country.
I remember, and you appreciate this, that when you're a Missouri fan, you root for whoever's playing Kansas in the tournament, right? And so then when you guys played against Kansas, everybody was rooting for you guys. And I remember that was kind of the first time a lot of Mizzou fans had a chance to see you and get your name on the radar since you had become a head coach. You're familiar with you in Arkansas. But I remember you got kicked out of that game, and you were hot. And I remember watching that game like, I want him to be the next head coach of Mizzou. Look at him. He's going. Let's go. And I like that style of play anyway. Do you remember why you got kicked out?
Oh, yeah. I probably I didn't say something to the official. I was talking to one of my players, and this guy, and he one of those guys I wanted to scratch anyway. But at the same time, I was fighting for my team. That's what I was.
Right.
We ran into a buzzsaw. Obviously, beating Kentucky and the hype and all that, coming to Kansas. Kansas was a really, really good basketball team. They had the Simon kid, I think, and their size just kind of really, really got us. So that was my way of. That was probably the only game I think I've gotten kicked out.
Yeah.
Probably had some more along the way, but that was one of them. I remember that. And but I was fighting for my team. That's all.
Oh, it was a good one. Hey, so I've debated whether I should ask you this question because I know the answer is I feel like it's gonna make me mad, but I got to ask it anyway. So I graduated from UMKC, and I've had people tell me over the years that you interviewed for the UMKC position, and you were a finalist, or you almost got it, or at least I every time I hear that, I say, don't tell me that. I don't want to hear that because I think about what could have been. I said, do not tell me that. And so now I'm ready to face that demon if it happened. Is that true? Is any of that true?
Wow, that is so. I mean, you have to be a reporter or somebody to know something like that. You have to be, because it was kind of like it was kind of hush hush on the down low and all that.
Oh no.
The AD I think at that time was Lee Hunt, if I'm not mistaken.
Mm-hmm.
Lee Hunt was on the staff at UAB when I was trying to get in there. He was one of the guys between him and Larry Finch. I was trying to bug them guys coming to high school. Hey man, y'all need to take me.
Right.
And sure enough, he followed my career. And one of the things, Coach Richardson, and I thank God for him being in my life, he wouldn't just let me take any job. But it's one I did. That's a fact that I did. I did visit with them. Yes.
Oh, I wanted him to say no.
Hey, Steven, you found something out today that nobody ever knew. No,
Cutting edge.
The only person I think that knew about that was probably my wife.
Well,
wow. And Coach Richardson.
I was a student manager for 1 year under Lee Hunt, and so I don't know. I don't know if it was Coach who told me. But someone has told me along the way, and that stuck with me because you don't forget that.
You don't forget that.
And I think because like Jarrett pointed out, you've never had a losing season, and the way you coached in that style of basketball, at the level that would have been so successful. And you could have. They still haven't made it to the NCAA tournament. But it makes you think of
what could have been.
Might have been.
What could have been.
That's all right. You know what? At least I got you at Missouri for a while, so that means at least that growing up a Mizzou fan.
And that's kind of the transition there. Just 2006 is when you take the job at Missouri, and I'm just curious. Like you're at UAB, and this was home for you, right? And you build up a good team, an NCAA tournament team, and you just mentioned like you weren't just going to take any job. So what was it about Mizzou? And were there other schools that you were thinking about, or what made Mizzou the draw for you?
Well, it was a tough decision. Obviously when you change jobs and when you had the kind of success and being at home, that was, the people at UAB and Birmingham, they were awesome. I lost my mom in 2004 and the university could not beat anymore. They were unbelievable. They have one of the top, hospitals there in the country, and they made that transition for me. And that's why it was real personal with me and my relationship with the UAB. But at the same time, obviously, when you're a coach and you want to, my goal was to win a national championship. And in order to do that, you got to have an opportunity. And so the conference USG had just, they lost some teams the year before. It kind of imploded, I think we had some teams that go to the ACC. Charlotte left, Cincinnati left, Louisville left, and people start the narrative always they try to say, hey, it's a one big lead or two big or whatever it is, big lead or whatever. Obviously, the Big 12 versus Conference USA, I think there was a big difference there. And I always say I was going to do what was best for me and my family whenever I did make a decision. Uh, so when I left and I got a chance to go up and visit with Mike Alden and the facilities and knowing the history, obviously with Coach Stewart there and Coach Quinn followed him. I just thought the opportunity was unbelievable, and we can do some great things there.
And let me tell you this: so I was there that day at the arena when you were hired, but from our perspective, we didn't know what was going on in the media, and there were rumors that Mike Alden was in trouble, and there was rumors that they were going to announce the new head coach. And we honestly didn't. I talked to Gabe DeArmond about this all the time. We didn't know what we were there when we first got there to cover. And then you figure out, okay, it looks like they're going to hire Mike Anderson. And I still remember being at that press conference at the arena, and people were so excited because, you took that program over and they'd had some tough times. There was a lot of turmoil, and a lot of people were upset. And I always say that you don't get enough credit for how you turned that program around because it was a difficult situation, and it took a little bit. But maybe can you speak to that about how you were able to come in a difficult situation and change the culture? And I remember, I think it was a game against K-State at home when you guys beat K-State. Would that have been with Beasley there?
Yeah, that was Beasley.
Okay, so it was right, and they were good. And I remember after the game, our Dave Ryder, he texted me and said, we have ourselves a basketball coach. And there were different moments I remember about that. But can you tell me about how difficult that was? Because people forget, man, that was a tough situation you took over, and you did a hell of a job.
Well, I just think, anytime you come in, it's going to be a new voice, a new way of doing things. And my biggest deal was to make myself available for our players. I always consider myself a player's coach, but at the same time, we're going to do things the right way on and off the floor. So, but family is big, and my players are my family, and I think that's the biggest thing was the relationship, communication, and open my arms to them, and then getting guys that fit what we're doing. I actually came in and visit with the staff that was there to see if there was fit with those guys, and then of course had to do some individual meeting with the players to see if this is something they want to do, and kind of lay down the rules and the foundation of what's going to take place. But you go ahead and it's going to be some rough times, and Mike Alden and I, we talked about that, but we just got to try to get through it. But that second year, I think the game you talk about, sometimes you got to have some defining moments, some breakthrough games. And I think that was one, because I think at that particular, we had an incident where I had to suspend like 5 guys.
Mm-hmm.
And so we took like 8 guys, and we're playing against the number 12 team, Kansas State, Michael Beasley, all of them. And we came out on the right side of it. And I think that was a defining moment of what our program was going to be about. And we didn't look back after that.
I think another big moment of when I look back on not only my career at Mizzou, but just where the program was at. And I know you've talked about this. I've talked to TJ Cleveland about this, and Coach Z and that staff, of just how important that offseason was before the 08-09 run. And just how important you guys were thinking of putting a class together, which would end up being Marcus Denman and Kim English and Lawrence and my class, and how important it was to find the right guys and the right fit to match, with the Leo Lyons, with the Zaire Taylors, Damari, and everything that went on with him getting to Mizzou after a stop at Vanderbilt. Do you think back on just how you guys really put that team together? Because I think that's very special, and what ended up being my 4 years in the winningest class in school history. It starts with you and the staff that brought us there.
Yeah, I think, I always say, you have to work with what you got until you get what you want. And so with that being said, those first couple of years, we were working with the guys that were already there. We had some pieces that we plugged in there. But at the same time, once we were able to get that class, so to speak, and not only that, get those other guys familiar with what we were doing. We had an opportunity that summer to bring everybody on board during the summer month. When we talk about Kimmy and Marcus, Lawrence Bowers, Big Steve Moore, Keith Ramsey, we got those guys up there, and we went on a summer tour. You can go and play 4 exhibition games, and we went up to Ontario, Canada. I mean, up there in Niagara Falls and all that stuff. And I thought it was probably the best thing we could have did, because back in those days, when you go on cell phones and when you went over there and you turned your cell phone on, it cost you a whole bunch of money. Now they got all this different stuff that you can, video call and whatever they call it, some kind of app that you can call free, but you couldn't do it at that time. So they had each other. They had to talk to each other. We worked out, and we played like 4 games. And I'm talking about we were playing teams that had won a Division II team over there, some of the national teams, and we were beating them like 35, 30. And I'm putting guys in schemes that we hadn't even worked on. And so I had the right guys that fit what we were doing. And then we just parlayed that into the season, and we had a great run.
I remember, and you said this a few times, but the first time you came on my show that first year, we were talking about, how, the style you wanted to play at Missouri and everything else, and you said, for a while it might be 20 minutes of hell and 20 minutes of what the hell, And so I remember that. And then the other one that Jarrett and I like to talk about all the time, you always use a reference fighting the bear, right? And some of those things still stick with us. What was tell us about fighting the bear?
Well, it's just it's like anything else. If I'm playing marbles with my grandmother, she's in trouble. So if you see me in a fight with the bear, you better help the damn bear. So that's just my mindset.
Hey, Coach,
and I want my team to take on that persona. Yeah. And I thought we exuded that a lot.
Coach, I sent you that the other day of LeBron James stole your line. LeBron puts a post out and says the same thing. If you ever see me fighting in the forest with a grizzly, help that bear. And I'm like, man, that's Coach Hayes' line. You can't steal Coach's line here.
I can't take credit. I got it from Coach Richardson.
Okay. All right. So look, now we've heard on this podcast before how Jarrett ended up making the team or becoming a walk-on and making the team. And he talks a lot about playing against you at the rec center. And I don't know, I trust him. He's an honest man. And I just want to make sure that he's not embellishing. Do you remember those days of playing a young, eager Jarrett Sutton at the rec center and how that led to him making the basketball team?
Yeah, it's like it was yesterday. Me and one of my assistants, Coach Jeff Daniels, wherever I've been, I've always done this here. There's a noontime basketball group that always plays, whether it be professors, professional people in that community, older guys, they get together and play. Guys understand the game. They play it the right way. And I've always done that. And so even with that being said, sometimes I used to play with the students. And to me, that's a great way to build a relationship, man. They think it's the coolest thing since sliced bread, man. Coach got that hoop, man. And Coach talking trash. Coach doing, I don't do all that, but I did compete it. But yeah, and so we're playing, and so this guy's on the sideline just like he want to get in. So I think they end up bringing him in there, and lo and behold, it's Jarrett Sutton. And guess what? I don't know what stories he tells you guys, but here we are on the opposite team now.
Right? Gosh, every time.
I get flashbacks, Here's some little young whippersnapper. Let me show the little young whippersnapper. But he comes out and he fits in with the group that we played, and we kept playing, and just I think through the course, just build a relationship, and then I think Coach Daniels, gets the information and say, hey man, we're gonna have tryouts for walk-ons and all that stuff, and a little bit did Jarrett know he already had. I think he had already did his audition out there on the court, because when you got the balls to come out there and go against the coach, man.
There's a moment, Coach, that sticks out.
Yeah, what happened now? Where's
so the best thing about playing at the so I was basically on the side. I saw the professors were playing, and then I see Coach A walking. Oh, Coach is playing. That's awesome. But I was on the side just shooting on my own before class, and they had 9. Like someone like got hurt or something. They needed a 10th, so I jumped in, and sure enough, me and Coach A were never on the same team. Not once, I don't think. And I'm like, all right, well, so they're gonna match us together. And I was like, I'm gonna play how I normally play. And Coach A just could hoop, and like he had that like competitiveness on the floor. And there's this play, and this was after we had been playing for about 2 or 3 weeks, where it was a close game, last game of the day, and I think I had like a layup that I could just end the game on a layup. And you fouled me because you didn't want to give up the layup. You didn't want to give up. You didn't want to lose a game. And I think, coach, I mean, you're a strong guy, and like I got fouled. And I was in the other. I like fell into the other floor. And I got up, and everybody was like, "Are you okay?" And I was fine. And Coach A didn't do anything. He just like straight faced and just kind of slapped me on the side. Like, I know I got you. And I kind of felt like that was like a moment of like we would go back and forth at each other in a healthy way. It was all good competition. So those are some great memories.
You knocked the hell out of him, Coach.
That's called old school.
That's right. That's right.
Oh wow.
So my thoughts too of just getting on the team at that time, it was really October. And so you guys, like you said, had the summer tour together. You had the conditioning, which I learned the next year what that conditioning was like. But I got on that team, and those first few practices, I've never been more sore of just how competitive, the pace of practice, we get in the periods. And I realized very quickly just how talented of a group that we had, but also the leadership we had. Damari, Leo, Matt, Mike Jr., like those guys really, especially with knowing what they had gone through previous years and everything that had gone on, I just really appreciated and respected just how they treated people. Our locker room was solid. And, yeah, we had young guys like Marcus and Kim and Lawrence and Steve, myself, that are just trying to get, the thick of things, trying to figure it out as freshmen. And they were just such great leaders. And I felt like everybody had the right thought process going into the season of we wanted to prove ourselves, and there was a lot to prove, and it felt like it started with those seniors.
Well, I think you hit it right on point. I always think when you have a team, obviously leadership is so important. And I was so proud of Damari, and Damari was a tough to aggressiveness, and Leo could lean on him. Leo was kind of like a follow. But I thought he actually started leading a little bit. Matt Lawrence's story is unbelievable. I mean, when I got there, Matt averaged 1 point a game. Yeah. He left as a 1,000-point scorer. And so you could see where he just grew and his confidence grew. Zaire had been a transfer. JT, I signed him twice. I signed him at UAB and then at Missouri, but he was my kind of player. And then, of course, Michael Jr. been with me all my life. So I think the leadership is so important. But then not only that, I think as that season progressed, you got to have people lead and you got to have people that follow. And I thought those young guys, they did a good job of following the right guys. But then ownership's got to take place. And I think when ownership takes place, that's when you can take it to another level. And I think when we got the conference play, we were beating people in conference play almost by 30 points. I mean, I think they call Missouri Arena the wood chipper or something like that there. I mean, because when you came in there, man, you got to come with it. But we also used to take that show on the road. So it just, to me, we just really start coming together as a group, and we hit our stride at the right time. And once we got to the tournament, great things take place. But again, it was a special group.
Coach, it's funny, like my role was always like in practice, like bring the energy. If I get on, try to keep especially in the dog days of January, February practices, where you might be a little banged up and just trying to bring it every day. But it's funny when I look back on that freshman year, I got into so many games because, to your point, we're beating teams by 30, 35 points. And I'm like, thanks, guys. You're getting me in the game here. But it's when you think back, too, we were picked 7th in the Big 12 that year. And the non-conference, we were 13-2. So we had a good start, and we lost our first Big 12 game, and then we went on that run. We won 11 out of 12. And then it was the Kansas win with Zaire's shot the Court Storm game. Is that the game that you circle of when we started to get taken nationally? I feel like things changed with that team. Everybody knew about us. They knew we were a good team, and then that sort of took us to the next step of, wait, this is a legit team that has a real chance to making a serious run.
Yeah, I think, you're absolutely. I think, we show bits and pieces of it, but until you prove it against the reigning champs, then that's when you kind of you get that exclamation point. And I think, we went undefeated. I think we ended up going undefeated at home.
Yep, we did.
That time, and so all that does is just puts the confidence in, and of course you got to be healthy, and you got to be fortunate. And but our guys, the ego stayed out. They stayed out the way. They knew that Demare, it was Abel Cal, Leo. We know what he brought to the table. And then I think the guys coming off the bench, I think whether it be 1 minute, 2 minutes, 3 minutes, those guys gave us everything. One of the more people don't realize it when you think about a guy like Keith Ramsey. He was a junior college All-American, and Keith was a switch knife, Army knife. He did anything we needed to done. And I thought that was big for our basketball team. But then you talk about the freshman, Denman. I thought Denman was good. English, they all had great moments. Lawrence Bowers, I always talked about that guy being a highlight waiting to happen. And of course, he's still there in Missouri doing his thing. So so when I look at that team, I think about there was a lot of moments, but they stayed the course. I think that was the biggest key. They followed my lead. Sometimes guys could get caught up in what people are saying about them. I always said this here, pat on the back and kind of set you back. Yep. I know you remember that one.
Oh, heck yes. Heck yes.
So let's be humble in what we do, and let's keep working to get better each and every day.
So you beat Baylor down in Oklahoma City for the Big 12 championship, go to the tournament, beat Cornell, beat Marquette, and then that Sweet 16 showdown with Memphis that culminated at least the first half of that half-court shot. And I remember sitting there watching that, thinking, was that the best half of basketball I've ever seen Missouri play? I mean, it was good. The magnitude of the game, just what a great matchup. Take me back to that moment, because you put 102 on Memphis in the Sweet 16, and that's probably my favorite NCAA tournament game ever for Mizzou.
Well, I thought it was one of those games where we did that first half was unbelievable. I mean, it's hard to match that again, especially against a Memphis team. And I'm very familiar with Memphis and Calipari, because at UAB we played them all the time, and they had I think they had maybe 6 or 7 NBA guys on that team. So here I got these little dudes. And I got one guy in the NBA. They got all these other dudes. But it's all about the team. And I thought we just came out focused and dialed in defensively. I remember hearing a clip, and I think it was from Jay Billis, and he was talking about our team. We had one of the top assist teams in the country. We shared the basketball. We created turnovers, and that was what we tried to do. We tried to create turnovers, don't turn it over ourselves, and then make that extra pass. And he made that statement. I thought that was big. He says one of the best passing teams he's seen, and but that game there, that was a big game for us.
I know I texted you during the Final Four, actually, when UConn was playing out in Glendale, and I was having flashbacks to us playing UConn in Glendale in that Elite Eight game. And I actually went back and watched it. I hadn't watched it in a long time, but I went back and watched it just to kind of – I remember just the slow start, but I remember us coming back and having I feel like if we had 5 more minutes, things might have been a little different.
Wasn't there it was maybe midway through the second half, and you guys came all the way back, and then Matt Lawrence hit a big three that either tied it or gave you a lead, and you're thinking, when he hit that three, I go, oh, they're going to win. They're going to win this game now.
Yep.
But then there was some ridiculous acrobatic shot that Kemba Walker made falling down, right? And then I go, no, what the hell? Not serious. It beat the shot clock, right? Remember that?
Yeah. Well, that was Kemba's freshman year, and I mean, UConn obviously they had a team, they had dudes. To your point, Coach, but actually Justin Stafford and Keith Ramsey were great in that game for us. They gave us a huge lift, and then we kind of got the confidence back as the game. It felt like we were kind of hit there early on, we just couldn't buy a bucket. And we just struggled early. And then all of a sudden we finally got back into a rhythm. And I just feel like if we had just a few more minutes, that game might have gone a little different.
Yeah, I just think a couple of players. It's amazing that, like I said, Kimber. I mean, we played against some great guards throughout the whole year in our conference, non-conference, and we could disturb them. But this dude was shaking and quaking, and I mean, he hit one of these bank shots. I think it was a big play. We came back. I remember we ran out of bounds play, and we got a dunk. I don't know if it was Justin or Keith Ramsey.
Yep.
Came up and they dunked it. I think they may have tied it up at that point in time. And then after that, it seemed like we just couldn't recover. But I think we did run out of time. And but I wasn't mad at Kimball because he did that to the people in the NBA. He did to other teams too.
Yeah,
he was really good. But it was an opportunity for us, and I thought our guys gave everything they had, and it was a good run.
You think too? We beat Blake Griffin at home when Oklahoma was ranked 5th in the country. That was a huge win for us at the time. We beat Tyreek Evans. I mean, we played some great players all season. When you look back on just that year, the amount of talent, and then came across that UConn team that was loaded. But I thought just our performance that entire tournament is rooted back to what we were talking about, just the leadership of those older guys. And I just felt like there was a buy-in from everybody, and everybody wanted to see each other succeed. That was what my takeaway was all year, was like it didn't care who went in the game. If you're going in the game, give us whatever you got, because we have depth. We have all these pieces, and nobody wants to play us when we get into guys, and we bring that fearlessness, and we bring that fastest 40. JT Tiller, like the Memphis game jumps out of JT just being everywhere. We always joke JT was gassed about the first 4-minute period, first 4 minutes of the game, and he'd just fight through. I mean, the guy was just such a dog. He was relentless. Just so many great guys on that team that made it what it was.
Well, Jarrett, just think about this here. That was a special group. You guys won 31 games.
Yeah.
How many teams at Missouri won 31 games?
None. That's it. That's our group. So, not many. So, and then
it was fun to watch. It was fun to watch.
Yeah. Well, and then like you look at those seniors leave, and they set the tone for what those next few years were. We were able to get Phil Pressey and Matt. We got Ricardo. I mean, we added a lot of great pieces to our teams. We went 23-11 in 09-10 season, and 10-11 season went 23-11 as well. And it was the first time at that point Mizzou had made 3 or more consecutive trips to the NCAA tournament since 2003. So you look at that 3-year span, and Mizzou hadn't won more than 20 games 3 years in a row since the 80s. So what we did in those 3 years really epitomizes just kind of the flip that you made with the program and where Mizzou basketball was to what Stephen was saying.
And it hasn't been the same since.
Right.
It hasn't been the same since. It really hasn't.
Yeah. Well, we were fortunate. We had guys that came in there, and it was about what was on the front of the jersey, not the back. And they were winners. They were winners, and that was the culture that we wanted to establish. And not only winning on the floor, but off the floor as well.
Yep. Coach, then you make the transition to Arkansas, and it was home for you. I still remember you coming into the locker room and telling us that you were leaving. It was a heartbreaking moment just because you're a father figure to us, and you always will be. But you were making the best decision for your family to go back home, to be the head coach, which is what your dream was when you were playing for Nolan and when you were the assistant at Arkansas under Nolan. I know that was not an easy decision for you at all. But I know you were taking a job that was the next step in your career, and you had such a great run at Arkansas for those 8 seasons, 27-win season, 26-win season. What was the jump, I guess, there? Because you went Conference USA to Big 12, then you went Big 12 to SEC. And at that time, it was like Kentucky ran the league. Now the league's much different in terms of the amount of good teams and the competition in the SEC. But what was kind of the adjustment? What do you remember just of making that jump and everything that went into that? Because it was a lot to just kind of leave and then go to Fayetteville.
Well, first of all, it was probably one of the toughest decisions I had to make. I talked about leaving UAB, but that one was really we had the program where we wanted it to, and I brought my godsons in there. All my players were my sons, godsons in there. And but at the end of the day, they were in good hands. I think Coach Haight came in there and did a tremendous job with those guys. But moving on to Arkansas, obviously, it was going to be another kind of a rebuild. They had Pelfrey had been there, and but going into the SEC, you're going to be in one of the more athletic leagues there is in the country. I mean, all leagues are great, and but that one there, I mean, you got some tall timbers, some great coaches, great tradition, great home court advantages. But it didn't change my mindset in terms of getting in there and getting the players that we wanted to fit what we want to do to take. Obviously, Arkansas has won a national championship. I was there when we won it, Final Four, and that was still my quest, is to win a national championship.
So now, we mentioned John Calipari when you beat him in the Sweet 16. You went up against him when you were at UAB. You went up against him when you were at Arkansas. And one of the biggest stories of this offseason that really overshadowed the national championship game almost is he left Kentucky to go to Arkansas. And a lot of people just felt like that was just a weird fit. Who knows? But what was your reaction to that? How do you think that's going to work out? Calipari at Arkansas now.
Well, of course, I'm not right now. I'm just kind of taking a break myself, but at the same time, I mean, I think he'd been at Kentucky for 15 years, and maybe it was this. He was ready to move on, and different challenges, and obviously he's did a tremendous job wherever he's been, and he'll do the same thing at Arkansas. And Arkansas, in the time now of transfer portals and NIL with money now, it's legal now. You can go and like the NBA team now.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm sure he'll have the resources to do that there, and it'll be interesting. You're still in the SEC. I mean, all schools have that, have an opportunity to do that. So it'll be interesting. But again, Arkansas has won national championship, and I'm sure that's what he's trying to do.
And you bring this up, and this is a difficult question to answer for some people. It's a loaded question, but NIL, transfer portal. There's been so many changes to college basketball, and it's like free agency. They're saying that there'll be up to 2,000 players in the transfer portal this year. Is this good for college basketball? Are we headed towards something that's going to continue to be good for college basketball? Do you think it's going to damage the sport? What's your opinion of this? Because it certainly has changed. This is not the same sport. And like you said, it's like the NBA. There's free agency. There's paying players. It's a whole different landscape.
It's just a little different. I mean, I'm sure there are a lot more smarter people than I am, but I don't know how good it is, until, obviously for the players, I think it's great for them, whether it needs to be a cap or, I don't know the answer, Steve. I mean, I'll be honest with you. I don't know the answer.
Nobody does. I don't think. It's just we have to see it play out, but it just changes everything, right? In the past, you'd recruit, get into the living room, win the mom and dad over, form a relationship with the high school coach or the AAU coach, and now it's almost just like a bidding war. And that aspect of recruiting, that'll always exist for some schools and some coaches, but it just changes the way you recruit now.
Yeah, it is, and I've heard some people, there's pros and cons. There's some people say, what, it's the new wave, and you got to be able to adjust. And then some people say, what, it's going to be the haves and the have-nots. So it's like I say, it's a little bit more complex than what people think.
And back in the day, the best way to go out and get a player was go knock the hell out of him in the rec league, and now it's changing.
That's right.
That's pretty good.
That's pretty good. Coach, to kind of piggyback, my last question for you would just be like, I remember our summers. I know it's so much different now because the summer hours and the NCAA changing the rules there. But player retention and player development, I felt like were just huge staples in terms of like once the season ended, it was time to work. You were that's when you became a different player. Weight room, playing pickup, staying in town and having that bonding time with your teammates and the new guys that were coming in. And back then, we didn't really lose a lot of guys. There were a few transfers here and there, but everybody stuck together, and I feel like that's kind of lost here, and I understand why. But where do you draw the line with the player development piece? Because I feel like now coaches are more incentivized too and deserve it to we got to go find guys to win right away, and it kind of takes away from this time that is in a very important time when we were there and under your direction when we were at Mizzou.
I think you're absolutely. That was, to me, is a time you build. When you build your team, you build a camaraderie. You spend time with your brother, man. So when you get on the court, it's easy to go to war with him, man. And of course now it's a little different because everybody got trainers and workout guys and things of that nature. So your team's going to change each and every year, and so I think there are some coaches who've been able to manage that and get creative in what they're doing in terms of getting their players on campus or getting them together. But at the same time, the transfer portal, this thing gonna go on all summer long, so you don't know who you're gonna have, and I think it affects your team when you get into the year. And but the team that actually, I believe this here, the team that, and we saw that with UConn, I think the team that can hold it together and keep their core guys together and build, they're gonna, to me, they're gonna actually have an opportunity to really far succeed than, let's say, the team that you put together and you get them together. Here come August, September. Now you got your team together, and I think we're seeing that play out.
All right, Coach. Before we let you go, two quick questions. Number one, it's changed a lot in college basketball, but you'll always have the reputation of being one of the best dressed head basketball coaches. Your suits were impeccable, but now very few coaches wear suits. I feel like Bob Huggins kind of led the way with the quarter zip. They started wearing jumpsuits and said, well, if he's going to wear that, I'm going to wear this. And now it's all quarter zips and pullovers and everything else. Should we get back to more suits on the bench for college basketball, or do you like the comfort that now that the pullovers and everything allows?
I like seeing guys dressed up, really, to tell you the truth. It ain't got to be the suits with the tie, but I like seeing guys dressed up. And then, of course, you got some guys who I think they do both. I mean, why not let them do both? But at the same time, I still got a bunch of suits that I ain't worn in a while.
Okay, last one. It was a big Monday game between you and Kansas. It was going to be at Mizzou Arena, and Sports Center showed a live look-in, and you were on the court by yourself. You had headphones on, and you were just dribbling. You take a three, get the ball, go back, take a three, and they go, they're looking, Mike Anderson getting ready for a showdown against the Kansas Jayhawks tonight on Big Monday. And I always wondered, what's Coach Anderson listening to get him hyped up before playing against Kansas in the border war? So what would you have been listening to if you were out there shooting threes on Big Monday?
I'm telling you, it's going to be one or two things. It's going to either be some gospel, or it might be Teddy Pendergrass.
Teddy Pendergrass. I'm going to go with number two. That's what I wanted to hear right there, Jarrett.
I love it. Coach, we've kept you too long. Appreciate your time jumping on the podcast. I do have to say this before we let you go, though, because I speak for many of your former players. But thank you for all you've done as a head coach. I wouldn't be where I am today if it wasn't for you. I think you know that. You always set the standard as our head coach. You were a leader in every way. You did it the right way, which I think you always talked about doing it the right way, and you actually lived that. And you always carried yourself with such class and integrity. And I looked up to you and admired you as a man, most importantly, not just my coach. And I'm very, very lucky to say that I got to play for you and you were my head coach. And I know many would say that. I always think play hard, act right. And there's so many times in my life, and I'll share this with my kids one day, of just about toughness and humility. Those were the things I think about with you all the time. And there were so many times during your coaching tenure, this is pre-NIL, pre-portal, where I always knew you were going to do it right. And I don't know if other programs could have said that. And I just think that's the man you are, and it's why your success speaks for itself. So thank you for everything you've been for us.
Thank you, Jarrett. That means a lot to me. I appreciate that. Thank you very much.
Okay. Well, thank you for joining us. And until next time, thank you all for listening. This has been the House of Hustle podcast.
Thank you guys for having me on.
All right. Thanks, Coach. Appreciate it.
That was awesome. Thanks, Coach.